foundation of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Mike Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Man, I see a ton of you folks out there out on our website. Lincoln, Nebraska, Los Angeles. There's a whole cluster of you guys out there in the Ozarks and the South Central Missouri range. Scurry, I think that's Texas. Bowling Green. Looks like you guys got stuck yesterday. Muncie, Coal City. I see folks out there up in Chicago. I see folks out there in Maine, Florida. East Coast, West Coast. Glad to have you on board. Thanks very much for joining with us and listening this morning. You know, we're going to talk about a couple of things, but I got to tell you, this morning's program is going to be a very important one for you to pay attention to. And I say that because we're going to cover a couple of aspects that I think you really need to know about. The first is on the VA scandal and why Obama's been silent, and I think I have a pretty good answer for that. The second one is biosurveillance, and I need you to be aware of what's happening here. The third segment, HIPAA, no secrets allowed. You are now naked and afraid. We'll make sure that you are fully understanding of exactly what the biosurveillance issue in the previous segment, and you're waiving your HIPAA rights. And I got to tell you, when I read you some of these HIPAA statements and the fact that there are waivers in there that allow them to release your information for protection of the president. Really? I mean, are you trying to tell me that 86-year-old Mrs. McGillicuddy needs her files released to the national government for national security purposes and to protect the president of the United States? Under whose definition? Where does that come from? I got to tell you, America, you have no idea what you're doing when you sign these HIPAA release forms. And your doctor doesn't know. The rules have all been changed since August, September, October of 2013, just before Obamacare went into play, and it's going to blow your mind. Our fourth topic, a phoenix of tyranny today is rising from the ashes of liberty. I got to tell you, folks, we're not in big trouble. We're not worried about the enemy getting over the fence or getting behind our lines. They are embedded in our lines, and they are tearing our nation apart. This is going to be one heck of a bang-up show today, so make sure that you're listening. And if you cannot, for some reason, you can always call our listen line and listen to it at your leisure. That number is 415-325-0725. You can listen live in the morning. You can also catch the program after about 9:45 or 10 o'clock in the morning. You can listen to it anytime at your leisure by simply dialing that number, 415-325-0725. It's our listen line. It's provided to us free by Audio Now. It's a free service for you. It doesn't cost anything. It's a long-distance call, but so what? You got unlimited minutes on your NSA personal tracking device anyway. You can also catch our program on Patriot FB. That's Patriot like Facebook. PatriotFB.com, where our program audio streams every morning live. And you can also find it now on PatriotFBRadio.com, where you can listen live and, of course, podcasted. PatriotFBRadio.com. You can also catch our show live on constitutionclub.ning.com. And, of course, you can always listen on our Spreaker feed on our website. You can watch the video live on our... I know I got a face made for radio. Can't help that. God gave it to me the way it is. But you can catch our program live in video on our website at americasvoicenow.org, or You can catch it later on and then share it with many, 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 many others on YouTube or right on our website. Right on our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can scroll down, and on the right side there are 4 little boxes. Every day, those 4 boxes refresh themselves with that day's programs, and they're usually up by about noon. So, and then up until then, the previous day's programs are there. All right. So I want to hear from you. Please make sure that you communicate with me directly. You can do so by emailing me to mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Guys, I got to tell you, this is going to be an amazing program today. This first topic of why Obama is silent on the VA scandal and the deaths that are associated with it, everybody's asking the question. I mean, the White House press corps is asking, the media is asking. It's all a dog and pony show for you anyway, but I'm going to tell you why. And the answer is very, very simple. He won't answer and he will not come out and publicly speak about this until the minions and the sycophants within this administration have verified and vetted that there is no direct way he can be implicated. It's very simple, folks. Let me clarify for you what I mean. The mice are scrambling right now. They are running around like chickens with their heads cut off to assure him and his handlers, who have been explicitly and empirically embarrassed over and over and over and over and over and over and over, that there is no one who can later produce a memo, an email, a phone call, a recording, or some verbal statement. Yes, I spoke to the president directly about this, because he wants to avoid guilty knowledge. I'm going to tell you why, too. He's avoiding another claim of liar in chief, but more importantly, he's avoiding a claim of an impeachment charge for aiding and abetting in the death of veterans. You see, people have died here, and he saw what happened with Benghazi when only 4 were dead. Imagine what it's going to be like when we now know that we know empirically that there are at least 40. The numbers are actually growing. We now believe it's well over 100. And it may, ladies and gentlemen, turn out to be hundreds, plural. And so what he's doing is he is making sure, and he is combing through the electronic digital media that is all part of the massive government to make sure that no one can come forth and say, but I sent the president's chief of staff a direct memo, or I discussed this with the president at a meeting at so-and-so. That's what this is about. That's why the silence. Now, the truth is, this scenario has gotten completely out of control. Yesterday, it was released that there are additional memos and proof that he was notified not just in 2008 via the transition team, but in 2010. And it was explicit. They were told by people within the VA and whistleblowers directly that they should be checking the waiting lists and the fraud associated with those waiting lists, that the times were unrealistic, that people were being placed on those waiting lists in order to avoid giving them an actual appointment. They knew. They knew all along. And look, it shouldn't be hard for you to imagine this, because they knew in advance about the Obamacare problems that were going to be incurred. They knew in advance, about the IRS issue. Now, I know this president loves to sit there and say, but I learned about it on the news like the rest of you. And with all due respect, I saw a report yesterday that this is the fifth time that the president has used that excuse. And with all due respect, I believe it's within the realm of any individual in the nation to ask the obvious question. Well, exactly what is it that you're doing all day? If the media is notifying you about Fast and Furious, which was one of them, the VA scandal, which is another one, the IRS scandal, which is a third, I mean, what exactly are all these people bustling about and running around doing all this work, hard work at the White House? I mean, you've got people who do everything except wipe your butt, maybe even that. And I don't understand, and most Americans don't, how you can be isolated and insulated from knowledge. Knowledge of these things that affect lives. You see, here's the problem with the VA scandal and why this one has got these guys running scared. This directly affects, one, virtually millions upon millions of Americans. Number two, there are definitely empirically attributable deaths to it, and they're deaths of veterans, which is an emotional pull because everybody knows at least one. Most have at least one in their family. Third, this is not an international incident, so they cannot throw the blanket of national security over this and smother it. Get it? I mean, how are you going to claim that you didn't put Bob Smith on a list for a colonoscopy or an X-ray, and that's got something to do with national security? You can't cover it up like you did Benghazi, like you did Fast and Furious. Oh, well, that deals with Mexico. Let's slam national security down over everything. There's the problem, folks. This is a hometown, homegrown problem. National security is not affected. They have no way to cover this. They're lying open and naked. And they know it. And this president will not come out. How many times have we seen this president do something we've seen virtually every other president in our lifetimes do? A national television address. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is so-and-so. I am the President of the United States of America. I'm coming here on national news tonight to speak to you about blah, 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 blah. How many times have we seen that with President Hussein Obama? How many times have we seen that? There's never a mea culpa. There's never a, we need to deal with this problem. There's national crises, international crises, emergency crises, exigent threats all over the place. And he's off, on the putting green. The truth of the matter is, there's no avoidance for this because he can't hide behind national security secrecy claims. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When we cover our second and our third segments this morning, and I explain to you how HIPAA is going to be used, I'm just going to give you a taste of it because I want you to understand the implications and the dangers associated with this. I've downloaded and printed off the HIPAA privacy notices and privacy practices of a number of different hospitals. And here's an example. This is Pittsburgh Mercy Health System. They're allowed to release your information and health information for federal officials, to federal officials, authorized federal officials, of course, authorized. That's a big difference there. For intelligence, counterintelligence, and other national security activities authorized by law. Excuse me? How did Mrs. McGillicuddy's tumor become a matter of national security and counterintelligence? That's only one. I've actually got one here that directly specifies the life of the president. Where is that one? I'll have to find it for you. My point is this. You see, when I keep telling you that we live in a police state and the media hasn't announced it to you yet, you keep on saying to me, come on, that's not true. You're just making a big deal out of nothing. You're overblowing it. I am? I don't think so. The point is simply this, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a point and at a time when, for all intents and purposes, here it is. This is Missouri Department of Social Services. This is their Notice of Privacy Practices regarding your protected health information. DSS, Department of Social Services, follows the laws that tell us when we must, and they use they emphasize must with an italicized. When we must share health information and when we can share health information without your permission, DSS will share information, and I'm going to read them all to you later, but just for the record, to the federal government to protect the country, the president, government workers, and for other government programs. So here's my point. To protect the president? You know, I didn't realize that Betty's melanoma threatened the president. Soon, they'll be able to cover up a VA scandal by saying it's to protect the president. It's a matter of national security. What's national security about the fact that 100 men are dead? 100 men that we know of. Some of them by their own hand, because they waited so long for care and treatment that it was easier to take a pistol and blow their own brains out than to continue to wait. This is a president who stood up many times and repeatedly stated over and over and over. He lambasted George Bush, saying the VA was a disgrace. And a president who classified himself as a military president should have done more. Then he took the reins and made it worse. Does that exonerate Bush? Heck no. Bush should have been charged and hung for treason. Absolutely. As should President Barack Obama. Impeachment should be used to immediately remove him from office and protect the nation from further damage. When I show you what the HIPAA disclosure is going to be of biosurveillance that I'm going to touch on in our second, you're going to realize exactly how far this has gone. The man is protecting himself because he does not want to be implicated in the deaths of scores of Americans. And the rule change isn't through yet. The rule change on HHS and all of this stuff for national security and intelligence and counterintelligence, what does that have to do with your health care? We're only going to use it for an isolated guy named Muhammad. Bunk. You're a liar. Just like you're only going to use metadata for the occasional. Well, then why are you turning it over to the DEA? Why is the DEA, and for those of you who aren't aware of this, because it only got a blip's worth of recognition on the news, we are monitoring through the National Security Agency every telephone call, not monitoring, actually recording and storing for up to 30 days every telephone call in and out of the Bahamas. And you know what they're doing it under? The guys that they have an agreement in place through the DEA. So the NSA has now taken the DEA's agreement with the Bahamian government and said, look, we've got this agreement in place so that we can catch narco traffickers. And we're now recording every phone call in the Bahamas, unbeknownst, of course, to the Bahamas and the Bahamians. And the NSA is doing it. They're not doing it for, I mean, look, the Bahamas have not threatened to, kidnap 300 12-year-old girls. They haven't threatened to blow up car bombs in Manhattan. They haven't threatened any dirty bombs in Nicaragua. So where's the national security threat? There is no national security threat. They're doing it so that they can fluff up the narco trafficking issues. That's not national security, number one. Number two, it's not the purview of the NSA. We have a DEA for that. Ladies and gentlemen, every president since 1900 has been betraying you. Every Congress, every member of every agency, every member of the judiciary. They're all in on it. There's no secret. The truth of the matter is, our nation is awash in tyranny. Awash. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our second topic this morning, which you cannot miss. Biosurveillance, the new treason from HHS. And they're doing it, by the way. There's no one in Congress that's approving this. They're just doing it under a rule change. When I explain this to you, you're going to be furious. I hope, for your sake, you're not listening to this program at night because you're not going to sleep all night. All right. We have been graciously offered an opportunity by Michael Slack, who is a friend of ours. And he runs a website called AmericanResumeService.com. That's AmericanResumeService.com. He's offered for the next $2,200 packages that he uses to create and develop and produce professional resumes for you, that he will offer that package to anyone who's a listener of AVN for $100. That's 50% off, and then he'll donate the whole $100 to AVN to keep us on the air. You need a resume? You got a son or a daughter, a husband or a wife? This is the perfect opportunity. It's AmericanResumeService.com. And I would strongly encourage you to participate in it and get out there, visit the website. You can also call Michael if you have any questions or you'd have to get any details about it. It's area code 417-264-2486 during normal business hours. It's 8 to 5. 417-264-2486. Please make sure that you support and sponsor and patronize our sponsors, including the battery station. They ship nationwide. They are one of the largest purveyors of batteries and electronic products around the country. They've got any kind of battery you can imagine, they've got it. And they are one of the largest distributors of batteries and battery technology in the nation. You can find their website by going to batterystation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799. And please make sure that you contact and participate with them. Please make sure that you visit our friends over at Atlas Survival Shelters. And if you're interested in one of their shelters, please make sure that you tell them that you heard and found out about them from America's Voice Now. We actually will get a Benny out of that at some point if you buy one of their shelters. They're not inexpensive. These are shelters you can bury in your yard. They're, $50,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. But I got to tell you, they're unbelievable shelters. AtlasSurvivalShelters.com. All right, we're going to take this quick break. We'll be right back. Biosurveillance, the new treason from HHS. America, prepare to defend yourself